Well, everybody knows that all kinds of things can happen in the Tour, right? I'd rather not dwell on that too much, but it's kind of fraught with danger.
You know, listen, we all got to race for points, and we all like winning races, and we all have races that we like, and just keep doing that and do it for fun. But if you're talking about like, you know, commercial focused races, California, Tour de France, and then, you know, the rest of the year.
Let's focus on the Tour de France.
Yeah, let's focus on the Tour de France.
That's such a good advice.
Yeah, exactly.
Tubeless. That's gonna be.
Is this top secret?
No, that's going to be the game changer for next and even the next 2 seasons. It's somehow not so easy to build a proper wheel which holds a proper tire, tubeless.
Oh, how many times did Christoph flat yesterday, by the way?
He had 2 wheel sets and he flattened 2 times. But the advantage to have that will be just huge. And due to the fact that we started 1.5 years ago for the time trial bikes, and we still have the same supplier, we're kind of 1.5 years ahead of every team.
And then radios?
What about an augmented loudspeaker from behind? Like a really loud loudspeaker?
I mean, that's the best way to do it. I mean, as far as it's keeping the rider totally clean. But I mean, it's got to be a really, like, we've done this in the past. Like when we won the team time trial in the 2011 Tour, that was with a big megaphone on the hood of the car. But it's really got to be like a good system. Like it's got to be like.
That's what I mean. Like
you're like addressing a crowd of 20,000 people.
What is that? The ejector seat.
Try it.
Oh.
Right. Do it. Do it.
Is it for the engines of the riders, maybe?
We forgot to put it on.
Oh yeah, so if it's a puncture, you do that?
Yeah.
And if it's a crash, you do that?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And if you have a question about the course, you press this one. We've got it all.
We didn't get great feedback from it. The riders didn't hear what I was saying. All you got now, Hugh? Come on, son! Come on, Hugh! It's super important to try and get everything tested in real race conditions before we get to the Tour de France. These races, you can't really call them training races because they're pretty important in their own right, but it's clear that the Tour is the big aim of the year.
This is the product of, I guess, what we've been talking about since we met in Barcelona, with those fundamental pieces that we needed, whether it was training peaks, how heavy somebody is, sleeping.
So I think the challenge is to use the data for your benefit and not get lost in, you know, drawing graphs of things that we already know, basically. So for me, the key is to find the information in all that pile of data that hopefully is going to tell you something before it happens.
So what you see here is the hours column is basically a 3-day average of sleep. HRV is deviation from their baseline. So that's a 45-day rolling average for them, and then a deviation of 3 days with the most recent 3 days to see how they stack up against their average. So that's kind of the most sensitive metric in the literature at the moment as to recovery. That's a measure of basically neurologic freshness, kind of how recovered they are.
Honestly, in my time, that just wasn't even something that was on the radar. You know, if somebody would have told me, if you share all this information, we can, I mean, it was just kind of a little bit science fiction.
I think it helps with riders understanding the objectivity of which we're making final race selections in the more contentious races, where there's race selections, that you can actually say, no, you know, we've actually been watching this, and here's how and why.
The team time trial is obviously one part of the tour. So there's an element of compromise because you need to try and take a competitive team for that event while still having riders that give you options for all kinds of different race situations. We've basically gone back to using old analog radios, which are a little bit smaller. Placing a radio of any description on a rider's back is never going to be optimal.
Come on, Ali, push. Still turning in 8, away from the line on the way back, don't disturb the line. Come on. One nice line, in behind Tom, still rolling in 8, we're still rolling in 8. Not too close to the line on the way back, TJ. Ali, carry the speed up here. Carry the speed, come on.
Even experienced riders and highly skilled riders need to be reminded of the correct techniques and the correct habits, and to find their way of working together in the given order that we have.
Quick changes on the downhill, quick changes. Ali. Rigo in behind TJ, Ali. And stop. Super. Good work, guys. Nice effort.
And you know, just as an introduction to find one, speak to someone, because it's not, you don't have to do this.
I just think it's got to be something more than us just saying, you need to see a psychologist, because
having that experience as a rider who often had his back against the wall and wasn't the strongest link in the chain, I think it gives me a good perspective on what riders go through and what pressure they're under. But on the other hand, you know, the position that I sit in now, I can't just have sympathy. I have to have empathy, but not too much sympathy, because I can't, you know, feel sorry for the riders.
I feel like if it's out of their language, native language, I think it's tough. So it's like we need a Dutch-speaking one, Flemish-speaking one, then we need, you know, an English-speaking one, then we need, and I don't know, I just feel like we need like, it's almost like how the medical department operates, that there's, you know, 5 of you guys and you kind of rotate in and out. It's almost like there needs to be like a psychology department, but it can't just be one guy.
My only other recommendation to kick it off is that they're completely external.
Yeah.
So we remove this like spy thing.
Then we come into the problem, if they are completely external, then we run into the same problem like an external coach, where they could be saying, don't ride at all.
The thing that I always come back to is to get that person up to speed to be able to advise us remotely. he needs to spend a lot of time actually with the riders, observing them. I really think that's the way to go forward, but again, like Andrea said, this is super delicate and it could be like a Pandora's box because the person will have to deal with the team so much.
Yeah.
You know how people talk, we can't just say, yeah, by the way, this guy's going to be, you're just not allowed to talk to him, he's just going to watch you. There's so many ways to cook an egg. At the end of the day, it's still an egg. And if you ride your bike a lot, you're gonna go fast sooner or later. Riders who train well and eat well and rest well, they also stay healthy. And again, that just compounds itself into growing condition. So what they should do isn't actually complex, but it's not easy to do. And I think it's the fact that it's not that easy that trips people up.
Ladies and gentlemen,